Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
What's up, guys? It's Brittany, and welcome to another episode of Randomness. Today, we are talking about something that affects up to 70% of people at some point in their lives, yet most of us suffer with it in silence. I'm talking about imposter syndrome. You know that feeling? You got the promotion, but you're convinced they made a mistake. You're in a room full of intelligent people and you're sure you're the dumbest one there. You achieved something significant. But instead of celebrating, you're terrified. Someone will discover you don't actually know what you're doing. So imposter syndrome hits the most accomplished, talented, and successful people the hardest. The people who look like they have it all together are often the ones feeling the most fraudulent inside. So let's talk about why this happens, what it really means, and most importantly, how to work through it. Imposter syndrome was first identified in 1978 by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, and they originally called it imposter phenomenon and observed it primarily in high-achieving women, though we now know it affects people of all genders. It's defined as a persistent inability to believe that your success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of your own efforts or skills. People with imposter syndrome attribute their accomplishments to luck, timing, or fooling others into thinking they are more capable than they actually are. It's not the same as low self-esteem or general insecurity. You can have imposter syndrome in specific areas while feeling confident in others. A successful lawyer might feel like a fraud at work while feeling totally competent as a parent, or vice versa. So let's go over some of the key characteristics. Persistent self-doubt despite evidence of success, attributing success to external factors like luck or help from others rather than your own abilities, fear of being exposed as a fraud or fake, discounting praise and compliments, assuming people are just being nice or don't know the truth, overworking to prevent being found out, which can lead to burnout, sabotaging your own success or avoiding opportunities because you don't feel worthy. It's important to note imposter syndrome, it's not an official diagnosis in the DSM-5. It's a recognized psychological pattern, but not a mental illness. And that said, it can contribute to anxiety, depression, and burnout if left unaddressed. And several factors contribute to developing imposter syndrome. The way you were raised plays a huge role. Like if you saw a family, or if you grew up in a family that emphasized achievement and made love feel conditional on success, you might internalize the belief that you're only valuable when you are accomplishing things. And this creates pressure to be perfect and fear that any failure will mean rejection. And if you were labeled as the smart one or the talented one growing up, you might feel pressure to maintain that identity and fear that any struggle means you're losing what made you special. Growing up with high-achieving siblings can create comparison and feelings of inadequacy. So can being praised for innate talent rather than effort. This makes you believe success should come easily, and when it doesn't, you feel like a fraud. Certain personality characteristics correlate with imposter syndrome, such as perfectionism. That's a major factor. If your standards are impossibly high, you will never feel like you've done enough or done it well enough. Neuroticism, or tendency toward anxiety, makes you more likely to doubt yourself and feel afraid about being exposed. Conscientiousness is hard to say that word. I'm so sorry. It can be a double-edged sword. Being responsible and hardworking is positive, but it can morph into overworking to compensate for feeling inadequate. Imposter syndrome disproportionately affects people from marginalized groups or those who are firsts in some way. First in their family to go to college, first woman in a male-dominated field. Only when you don't see people who look like you in positions of success, it's harder to believe you belong there. And you might internalize stereotypes or feel additional pressure to represent your entire demographic. There's research that shows women, people from working class, LGBTQ, and more, they often experience more intense imposter syndrome because systemic barriers and bias make their achievements feel more precarious. And starting something new, a job, a relationship, stage, parenthood, a creative project, naturally brings uncertainty. You haven't built up evidence of competence yet, so feeling like you don't know what you're doing makes sense. The problem is when this feeling persists long after you should reasonably feel comfortable. If you've been doing something successfully for years and still feel like a fraud, that's imposter syndrome. And we live in an age of highlight reels. Everyone online looks confident, successful, and like they just have it all figured out. When you are only seeing people's, little bits of their life and moments, it's easy to feel like everyone else is legitimate while you're struggling behind the scenes. And the reality, most of those people feel like imposters too. They're just not posting about their self-doubt and their failures. Dr. Valerie Young identified 5 distinct patterns of imposter syndrome, and you might relate to one type or several. So, the first is the perfectionist. Perfectionists set excessively high standards for themselves and feel like failures if they don't meet them perfectly. Even minor mistakes feel catastrophic. If you're a perfectionist imposter, you might feel like your work is never good enough, no matter how much effort you put in. Focus on what went wrong rather than what went right. Have trouble delegating because you don't trust others to meet your standards. Beat yourself up over small errors that others wouldn't even notice and feel like anything less than 100% is failure. The core belief, if I don't do it perfectly, I'm a failure. Number 2, the superwoman or superman. And this type feels they need to work harder than everyone else to prove they are not frauds. They push themselves to excel in every role, employee, parent, friend, partner, all at the same time. So if you're the superman or superwoman, you might work excessive hours to prove your worth, feel guilty when you're not being productive, struggle to relax because rest feels like laziness, take on too many responsibilities, measure your worth by how much you accomplish. And the core belief here is, I need to be the best at everything to prove I deserve to be here. The third is the natural genius. Natural genius imposters believe that competence means things should come easily. If they have to work hard or take time to master something, they feel inadequate. If you're the natural genius, you might feel ashamed when you struggle with something, avoid challenges where you might not immediately excel, give up quickly when things get difficult, compare your behind-the-scenes struggles to others' finished products, feel that needing help or practice means you're not truly talented. And the core belief, if I were really smart or talented, this would be easy for me. 4 is the soloist. They feel the need to accomplish things independently. Asking for help feels like admitting weakness or incompetence. So if you're the soloist, you might refuse to ask questions, even if you're confused, decline offers of help or collaboration, feel that accepting assistance diminishes your accomplishment. pride yourself on being self-sufficient to a fault, or see needing support as proof you're not capable enough. And the core belief, if I can't do it alone, it doesn't count. And then the fifth is the expert. Experts, Jesus Christ, I cannot talk and I'm sorry. Experts feel they need to know everything before they can consider themselves smart. They're constantly pursuing more knowledge, certifications, or experience because they never feel they know enough. If you're the expert, you might over-prepare for everything, avoid opportunities if you don't feel 100% qualified, pursue endless training, fear of being exposed for not knowing something, or feel intimidated by people who seem to know more. And the core belief, I need to know everything before I can consider myself qualified. So imposter syndrome manifests in various ways across different life areas. At work, you downplay your accomplishments in meetings, and when praised, you deflect with, oh, I just got lucky, or anyone could have done it. And you attribute your promotion to being in the right place at the right time rather than your qualifications. You overwork, arriving early, staying late, terrified that if you work normal hours, people will realize you're not as committed as they thought, and you might turn down opportunities or advancement because you don't feel ready, even when you're more than qualified. You might over-prepare for presentations to the point of anxiety. You might procrastinate because you're paralyzed by fear of not being perfect. And then in creative pursuits, you hesitate to share your work because it never feels good enough. You compare yourself to established artists, writers, or creators, and you feel like your work is amateur. You might finish a project but never release it, always finding one more thing to fix, or you create in secret, too afraid of judgment to go public. And when you do share something and receive positive feedback, you assume people are just being polite or don't have discerning taste. In relationships, you might feel undeserving of your partner's love, waiting for them to realize they could do better. You overgive in friendships, trying to prove your worth as a friend. You might struggle to accept genuine compliments about who you are as a person, assuming people don't really know the real you, which you believe is fundamentally flawed. And then we have in parenthood, new parents, they feel like they're the only ones who don't instinctively know what they're doing. You compare yourself to other parents who seem to have it all together, not realizing that everyone is struggling. You might feel guilty for parenting mistakes, convinced you're damaging your children while dismissing everything you're doing well as just basic parenting. And here is something fascinating. Imposter syndrome, it often gets worse as you become more successful. You think achieving more would make you feel more confident, but for a lot of people, it has the opposite effect. Each new level of success raises the stakes. Now you have more to lose, more people watching, more ways to fail. The higher you climb, the more you fear the fall. You think, I have fooled them this far, but eventually they'll figure out that I do not belong here. And living with constant self-doubt, it takes a toll. Mental health suffers. The persistent anxiety, fear, and negative self-talk contribute to depression and anxiety disorders. Burnout becomes inevitable when you're overthinking to compensate for your feeling inadequate. You can't sustain that pace forever. You miss a lot of opportunities. Your joy is basically stolen when you can't celebrate achievements or accept compliments. You rob yourself of the satisfaction and happiness that should come with success. You're achieving things but not enjoying any of it. And of course, your relationships may suffer, constantly seeking reassurance or being unable to accept love and praise strains relationships. Overworking to prove yourself means less time for connection. And the irony is that the coping mechanisms we use to deal with imposter syndrome, overworking, perfectionism, avoiding challenges, actually reinforce it rather than resolve it. So how do you work through this? Well, here are a few evidence-based strategies. Name it. Simply recognizing this is imposter syndrome can help. When you label the feeling, you create distance from it. It's not truth. It's a psychological pattern you're experiencing. So you might say to yourself, that's my imposter syndrome talking, when you catch yourself thinking that you do not deserve your success. Collect evidence. Keeping a wins folder of accomplishments, positive feedback, and successes. Writing down evidence of your qualifications and achievements, or reviewing this evidence when self-doubt creeps in. Reframe your thoughts. Instead of, I just got lucky, try, I prepared well and took advantage of an opportunity. Okay? So talk about it, because it thrives in silence. And when you share these feelings with trusted friends, mentors, or therapists, two things happen. First, you're likely to discover others feel the same way, and this normalizes the experience and reduces shame. Second, other people can offer perspective, and you can't see yourself. They can point out your accomplishments and qualities that you're dismissing. And you need to separate feelings from facts. Embrace being a beginner. Give yourself permission to not know everything. Everyone starts somewhere. Everyone struggles when learning something new. Redefine failure. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this rather than what does this say about me? You need to set realistic standards. Practice self-compassion. Mentor others. It can help you see how much you've actually learned and grown. And you need to learn to accept compliments gracefully. And consider therapy. Yes, cognitive behavioral therapy is very effective for challenging and reframing the thought patterns underlying imposter syndrome. So let's end on this thought. What if you're not faking it? What if you're actually just doing it? Think about it. You have the job, you're doing the work, people are trusting you with responsibilities, you're producing results, you're learning and growing. That's not impostoring. That's just being a person who's doing their best, learning as they go, and yes, sometimes feeling uncertain, because that's what it feels like to be a human. Everyone feels out of their depth sometimes. Everyone has moments of doubt. Everyone is, in some sense, making it up as they go along, because no one has all the answers, and life doesn't come with a manual. You're not a fraud. You're a person doing real things, having real impact, and occasionally feeling unsure about it. That's called being human. So next time that voice whispers you're a fraud, remember that's not the truth talking. That's just fear. And fear doesn't get to make the decisions. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Chances are they're feeling like an imposter too. But until next time, keep showing up, keep being brave, and remember, you belong. All right, y'all, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to hit that follow button and share Randomness with a friend, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.